there's more, there's,
Doug? Are you ready?
yeah, but there's like treasurer, assistant treasurer, clerk.
I hereby call this meeting to order and would like to thank tonight's presenters and anyone joining us in person and by way of live stream. Thank you for being here. We will begin with the pledge, and Dallas Burns will lead us in that pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All of our board members are in attendance. There are a couple of addendum items which include additional information on human resource report, media report, and community relations update. Correction to the 2022-2023 school board meeting calendar, out-of-state overnight travel request, and the Idaho General Revenue Report. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda with the addendum.
I move that we approve the agenda with the addendum.
Is there a second?
I second.
Is there a discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, any opposed? That motion is passed. Next on the agenda is the approval of minutes. I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes as corrected.
I second.
I move that we approve the minutes as amended,
Is there a second?
corrected, rather.
Is there a discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion is passed. Next on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda, which includes authorizing the payment of claims, approving the supplemental financial information, and approving the addendum human resource activity. Is there a motion?
Okay. I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
I second.
Is any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Myself? Aye. Any opposed? That motion is passed. Next, we will have Courtney Fisher, who will provide the January recognitions for us.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, trustees, Dr. Howell, Ms. Johnson, and student representatives. We're happy to have you join us this evening for your first regular board meeting for those who are new. Tonight, we will recognize several individuals who, through their actions, support and embody our district's mission to think more, learn more, and be more together. So first up, we have our Cake Awards, which we do every month. Our district believes that a safe, supportive, caring, and respectful environment is critical to student learning. The School District 25 Education Foundation, in partnership with McDonald's, supports the Learner of the Month Award to recognize one elementary and one secondary learner per month from October through May. The Cake Award celebrates positive character, attitude, kindness, and encouragement toward others. In addition to being recognized here with you tonight at the monthly board meeting, the recipients also receive a special treat delivered. We used to do cupcakes. I need to update my presentation. They get a cupcake kit to make cupcakes at home with their families, and then they get special treats delivered to celebrate among their peers in their classrooms. Awards are submitted by a teacher who has observed the nominee's behavior and are approved by the school's principal. So first up for January, our Elementary Learner of the Month, please help me welcome Sadie Burns and her teacher, Mrs. Katie Burrup, to the podium. So join me up here. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here with us tonight, and thank you for your family for joining you. And Dallas, thank you for leading us in the pledge tonight. Sadie is a third grade learner at Wilcox Elementary School. In her nomination letter, Mrs. Burrup wrote, "Sadie exemplifies the qualities of this award in so many different ways. She always has the best attitude and is such a pleasure to teach. Sadie tries to befriend anyone that she can, and I have watched her to be inclusive many times. She has really helped one of my students come out of their shell. This student is shy and rarely speaks. Sadie set up a special time and day to eat with her one-on-one just so that she feels comfortable. She is not just a phenomenal friend, but also a fantastic student. She is constantly putting forth her best effort and never gives up when things get hard. She pushes herself to be her best, and I have noticed that those around her really look up to her and follow her example. She shows kindness in her everyday actions by always smiling and greeting her classmates, helping our classroom function, and just being there for anyone who may need an extra hand. I am so proud that she's my student. So Sadie, tonight you get this certificate, and like I said, you will be given a cupcake kit to make at home with your parents, and then some special treats to share with your friends. You and your teacher will receive a gift certificate courtesy of our partner with this award, McDonald's, and also a $50 donation to your library so you can help your media consultant pick out books in your name. I think that's pretty cool. Congratulations. So we always like you to say hello to our board so they can congratulate you if you and your teacher will go through. And you can do what you're comfortable, fist bump or just say hello. And we'll have Cammie snap your picture outside before you leave, okay? So next up, our secondary learner of the month is Kamaya Kennedy and her teacher, Miss Jordan Green. Kamaya was unable to join us, but Mrs. Green is here, and if you'll come and represent, that would be awesome. Thanks for joining us tonight. So just so we can share the story with our board so that they know, Kamaya is a junior at Century High School, and in her nomination letter, Mrs. Green wrote, "Kamaya is a student in my health class. This class has a ton of personality and a diverse population of students. One of the students in that class is an EL learner, English language learner, that has come to us with very little English. I rely on Google Translate to communicate with this student. Kamaya sits close to the student and began taking the initiative to use Google Translate on her Chromebook to help the student while I was busy answering questions for other students. Kamaya makes sure to include the student in conversations with her friends as well as the group work. She does not do the work for her, but has worked really diligently to try to translate across the language barrier. She makes my load lighter as I see them interact with each other throughout my class. At one point, they had finished their work, and Kamaya and her friends had asked the student to teach them some Spanish words to pass the time. All the while showing this kindness and great character, Kamaya is on task and is a great student. Sounds like she has a great teacher, too. So we will give you this as well as the treats that are outside for you to take, and if you will, you'll also be getting a gift card to McDonald's, and that's all waiting for you outside, and a $50 donation in Kamaya's name for your library, so if you'll share that information with her as well, and then let our board congratulate you. Thank you so much for the nomination.
Good to see you too.
It's so awkward.
Yeah, nobody knows.
Next up, we have our January Employee of the Month, or our PIES Award. So I would like to invite Ms. Carrie Thomason and Ms. Rebecca Williams nominated, but she was unable to join us tonight. So Carrie, thank you for being here. The Employee of the Month, or PIES Award, recognizes our employees who positively influence educational success. The award is for employees who go above and beyond in that effort, and Lookout Credit Union partners with us in this award. I've seen firsthand how Ms. Thomason goes above and beyond, so I can wholeheartedly support this nomination. Mrs. Williams is a first-year teacher, which is relevant to this award, at Gate City Elementary, and she teaches kindergarten. In her nomination letter, Mrs. Williams wrote, "Carrie conducted most of the new employee training for the elementary teachers." Tell me your exact title again.
Elementary Instructional Consultant.
Elementary Instructory Consultant. So she's one of our new teacher consultants, so that's important to this. I am a new teacher this year, and I was so impressed with her professionalism and knowledge about teaching. Beyond that, she repeatedly made me feel confident in my own teaching while letting all of us new teachers know that we have time to grow and become the best teachers that we can be. I left those trainings feeling more supported than I ever had in any other job. I absolutely love the support and positivity that Carrie provides to new employees. I appreciated that she said that if we need any help, we can always call her for advice, or if we need to come into our classrooms and observe, she would be happy to anytime. She has already stopped into my school and helped my department plan out our schedules and how to effectively use our primary resources. She has great suggestions that seem very doable, and I just couldn't be more impressed with her. Thank you, Carrie. So Carrie, you will be receiving a $50 gift card from our partners, Lookout Credit Union. And thank you so much for everything you do for this district to support our new teachers and learning. And if you will, let our board congratulate you as well. Thank you. And that concludes our recognitions. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is public written comment on topics not pertinent to the agenda, action items, and no written comment was received, and I had no request for public comment, so we will move on. Next on the agenda is the student representative reports. We will begin with Aubrey Larson from Pocatello High School.
So Aubrey wasn't able to make it tonight, so I'm filling in for her. I'm Josie Packer. I'm the student body vice president at Pocatello High School, and we just wanted to update you guys, I guess. So we've been really loving our new addition. It's super nice. The science teachers love it, and it's great. It's also been a really fun area for kids to eat lunch at. Our robotics team has kicked off their 2022 season, and they are actively prototyping and building a robot to compete in this year's event, which will be held the last Friday and Saturday of March in Boise. In addition to building the robot, team members build a practice field, program the robot, and promote the team via social media and news outlets and participate in community service. If anyone wants to check them out, they build Monday through Friday in the old seminary building by Franklin Middle School from 6 to 8:30, and they would love to have you come and see them work on their robot. Student government has created a giving tree this year that provides Christmas gifts, and this year we provided gifts for over 100 individuals, and some of the gifts include bikes, beds, haircuts, coats, boots, clothing, and many more. Sunny Gunn, one of our athletes, signed to run for Idaho State University today in both cross country and track and field. Pokey Speech and Debate has attended 3 tournaments since the last board meeting. They attended the Twin Falls tournament that had 19 schools and 531 entries, and Pokey took 25 individual awards home and took 3rd as a team overall. They also attended the Black Snake Invitational. There were 20 schools there with over 580 students, 80 entries, and Pokey took home 25 individual awards, or 40 individual awards, and 2nd place overall. Another thing that student government has done is provide holiday meals for 50 families, and we were able to get that money through the Haunted House fundraiser that we do. And all of our sports teams have been working very hard and doing well. Today, the boys play Preston in basketball. And then next week, we play Highland in basketball for both boys and girls. And Preston has wrestling against Century. We have wrestling, not Preston. Pokey has wrestling against Preston next week. And so we're excited for those. And that's all I have for you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Highland High School and New Horizon High School representatives are excused tonight. Next, we will hear from J.J. Anderson from Century High School.
Hi, JJ is also not here. She had something come up, so I had to fill in. Good evening, members of the board and Superintendent Howell. Nice to see you all for the first time. My name is Dominic Samana, and I am the ASB co-president at Century High School. My co-president, JJ, couldn't join us tonight, and she wanted to send her best regards as we fill you in what's been happening at Century in these past couple of weeks. Last month, we put on our 2nd annual Hunger Games, which we told you about in December. We're happy to report that it was a huge success. We made over $2,600, and all of the proceeds went back to Century students and staff. Right before Christmas, some of the student council members went shopping for some essentials and gifts for the less fortunate, and it was all 100% anonymous. In our athletics, our boys basketball has been doing amazing. They're currently on a 9-game winning streak, and that includes a 22-point win over Pocatello. Our girls basketball team, has their senior night tomorrow night and just won against Madison High School. Our wrestling team has been on a roll, coming off of a huge win against another local high school. Diamond dancers and our cheerleaders are leaving for districts next Friday, so good luck to them. And last but not least, our debate had 8 out of 10 place in first or second place in their last competition at the Black Snake. They have a virtual competition this weekend, and I'm sure they will kill it. I wish I could say that we're overfilling with activities and events from this month, but we haven't. I'm excited to come back next month and then tell you guys about all of the state competitions and all the things we have planned for February. Thank you.
Thank you, Dominic. Appreciate it. We will now have the media report and community relations update provided by Courtney Fisher. Oh, yes, you guys can be excused if you wish. Or you can stick around, whichever.
You're welcome to stick around. Okay, hello again. So each month, I provide in the addendum links to media articles that we are tracking and that might be of interest to you. They're from local stories, regional stories to state stories, or national stories if they're applicable to education here in Idaho. So some of those headlines of interest include 2022 Idaho Legislative Preview. Both Governor Little and State Superintendent Ibarra have posted their legislative agenda, so lots of stories related to that. The school standards debate, that's part of that legislative preview. State Board has shifted to enrollment-based K-12 funding model again. That's one of the headlines. School staff health bill, insurance bill emerges. That's going to be important for us to track. Locally, United Way donated nearly 8,000 books to address learning loss. And the Omicron variant disrupts schools and life across Idaho. That's another, we've been paying attention to school closures around us and other news about that Omicron variant. Each month I track various metrics to determine how our communication efforts are proceeding. One of those, we live stream every board meeting, so we track how many views we get. At the December 14th meeting, that was a regular board meeting, we received 110 views. And at the January 11th work session last week, there were 55 views. That tends to swing depending on what's on the agenda. Social media, we have several social media channels that we're very active on, and we continue to incrementally grow those audiences. Facebook continues to be our largest social media venue with nearly more than 10,500 followers. We have 451 followers on Twitter, 1,165 followers on Instagram, and 341 followers on YouTube. We share a variety of content across these social channels. We're starting to do a lot more video to try to really engage those audience, not just on what's current, what people need to be reminded about, but also sharing news, accomplishments from both our staff and our learners. So we're always looking for stories from our schools to share, and they do a great job of supplying that content that we can then turn into a fun story for our viewers. We track our website, and we, for those of you joining us, we are in the process of developing a new website, which we will launch in June of 2022. That project is on track to launch, so we're really happy about that. We look at all those analytics. We had 41,000 users on our website in the last 28 days. That fluctuated from 51,000 over the last month, but that makes sense because we had the Christmas, the holiday break in between there. So that usually, we can usually account for dips and increases based on what's going on. 71.2% of our users are accessing our site via mobile, which that's a really important thing as we develop the website to make sure that that is a mobile-friendly website. Right now it's not, so that causes some frustration. So that's definitely something we're keeping top of mind as we build that new website. I've added the top 10. I always share the top 10 page hits. Home's always first. PHS Home seems to always be in the top 10. Elementary school food services. Our news is is in the top 5, and then COVID-19 active weekly case count. We update that case count page every Friday. It fell out of the top 10 for several weeks. Now makes sense. It's right back up there where people are checking that actively. Food Service Administration, Franklin Bell Schedule, Human Resource Administration, New Horizon Center News, which is interesting. I think that's probably one of those bot issues again, because it's really kind of an outdated page. And then the Hawthorne Middle School Bell Schedule. So that is that. And then we wanted to briefly, I'm going to invite Ms. Brenda Miner, our Director of Human Resources, up to join me. We thought this would be a good opportunity for us to just give you a picture, since we have 3 new board members, of what's happening with COVID in our schools right now. The roadmap, as you know, the roadmap for the safe return to in-person instruction and continuity of services for the 2021-2022, that's its full title, was adopted on September 28th. Built into that roadmap is a review in February, so we will be reviewing the roadmap at the work session on February 8th, with the potential to make revisions to that roadmap at the regular board meeting in February, which is February 15th. Tonight's addendum includes that leadership dashboard, which includes the key metrics, because we felt like with several new members, it would just be really important to touch on those key metrics quickly. So, I've got these are the things that we look at as district administration, and then we share with you. We monitor these things on a daily, weekly basis. That includes hospital crisis standards of care that they share with us. They share with us any models that they're projecting. The rate of active cases in Bannock County sustained for 14 days. They like that number to be at 4 or 5 per 10,000, and that number right now is 152, I believe, today. Is that correct? Number of R-positive cases for both learners and staff, and that's really important to note that we track those cases that have official medical documentation. Impact on learners, any quarantines or other extended absence due to illness. Impact on staff, same thing. Our partner recommendations, whether that comes from the governor's office, whether that comes from the local medical community or from Southeast Idaho Public Health, we are constantly in contact with them during these spikes. And then we're monitoring trends and cluster outbreaks, whether that's a school cluster or a district-wide cluster. So every Friday or Monday, it just depends on the ADA count, you will get an email from my office with 3 different things. So we link to the weekly active COVID case status report. We link to the Southeast Idaho Public Health, their active case page, and we also send the district's average daily attendance for the current week. So I just wanted to share a picture of what that looks like for the with some benchmarks that we've been tracking. So there's links to these in your addendum. So the week of September 17th, which was really the height of our last spike, we had 97 learner cases, 26 staff cases, which totaled 123 district-wide cases that were, again, those officially documented cases. That's our highest count to date since we've been tracking this for over a year. December 17th, right, that's the last Friday before break, we had 13 active learner cases, 3 active staff cases for a total of 16 district-wide. January 7th, that was the week ending right after we returned from break. We had 15 learner cases, 5 staff cases, and 20 district-wide cases. Fast forward a week, that picture has changed pretty dramatically. We have 81 learner cases, 25 staff cases, totaling 106. So we haven't quite reached that spike in September, but we're watching that. Again, there's a link to the Southeast Idaho COVID. You'll notice that epi line really just, there's no curve. It just goes straight up. So we're monitoring that. Our average daily attendance for the same weeks that I showed you above, 88% district-wide attendance on September 17th. That was week 4 of the school year. 92.42% district-wide the week ending 12/10, or that's supposed to be 12/17, sorry. That's week 15. 93.35% district-wide ending January 7th, that's week 17. And 90.23% district-wide ending this last week. And then today, I have printed here 86.38, but we checked just before we came in because that tends to fluctuate as the day goes. 85.96 was our district-wide attendance. So we continue to schedule update calls with Ms. Maggie Mann, who's the Executive Director of Southeast Idaho Public Health, and our most recent call was on Friday, January 14th, and Brenda, Ms. Miner and I both participated in that call. This information is likely changed even in 3 days, but I'll just share what she shared with us during that call. There were 1,600 active cases, which is the largest single case count since the beginning of the pandemic in March of 2020. They are highly recommending that PCR testing is done. The rapid tests have proved to be really fairly inaccurate. Lots of false negative tests coming back. While Omicron seems to have mild symptoms, they're still finding that vaccination is keeping people out of the hospital with really severe cases. And she said that the next 10 days, and this is Friday, and I think she was talking Wednesday, so we're now probably really close to that window. 10 days to 2 weeks will be revealing in terms of what that picture is going to look like for our hospital. So she'll update us on any of that. The CDC is updating their masking guidelines, so we will keep the board up to date once those new guidelines will be released. And Ms. Mann has promised that she will send those to us as soon as she gets that information. And that is it for my report, and I'll turn it over to Brenda, and then we'll entertain any questions after she gives a staffing update.
Good evening. I just wanted to update you regarding staffing as far as where we stand as far as attendance. And if you look on here, you'll see that the weeks that we have documentation of the staffing is the same that we did for students. And so when I say staffing, this is an overall percentage of all staff. So teachers, paras, classified, everyone in the district. So if you notice, it's 90.89%, and that was the week ending of September 17th. 91.16% district-wide, and that was the 12/17. 92.61% district-wide, and that was ending the first Friday we were back, and then 90.25% district-wide, which ended last Friday. Now, I don't have one for today because, for example, in our classified, they put in their attendance at the end of each week, okay? But so just so you guys kind of have an idea of what today looked like, and where we were at. So we had just in the when we fill a substitute position, we fill them for teachers, and then our special needs programs that have paraprofessionals in those classrooms, we fill those with substitutes as if they were for a teacher, because we know how that small group setting needs more of a one-on-one, and so we've prioritized those substitutes to have, or those classrooms to have a substitute as well, if it's a teacher or if it's a paraprofessional. So that being said, that number today was 87, and then out of that 87, we were unable to fill 34 of those positions. And so what that looked like to us today, because we know that we talked about our goal is to always have our learners, as long as it's possible, to have them 5 days a week. And so we brainstormed today, and I've been working today to come up with some interventions, hopefully, that will be able to keep our learners in school, and where we're at for tomorrow, and what are some of the things that we have planned. So I just would like to share a few of those things with you. So we've canceled this week and next week, we've canceled all professional development and PD that's happening during school hours, and so that we can take those substitutes and put those back in the classrooms. And so again, the important piece of that, like I'll use an elementary for an example, just because that's what I'm familiar with. When I was at Wilcox as the principal, we have our RTI, or our response to intervention at our elementary schools. So for example, if there's pairs in there or that teacher, we know that that is super important, but we know first and foremost is we want to keep them in school every day. So those teachers or those pairs, we have being able to go into the classrooms to make sure that there's a qualified sub in those classrooms. So that's one of the other areas that we're looking at. We've also decided that no field trips, and that would leave us the need for a sub back in the classroom. So for example, in elementary, that doesn't happen very often, but middle school and high school, it's, say for example, maybe a health teacher who also has some PE classes, so maybe her health class is going to on a field trip, but there would still need to be a sub for that PE teacher. So we're having those field trips if you have to have someone stay back. And to be real honest with you, they still may be canceled due to the shortage in bus drivers as well, because again, those numbers don't reflect are classified. And for example, today I called back and they're doing an amazing job. They have, some of our bus drivers are coming in, for example, if they usually do a middle school route, they'll come in early and then they'll do the elementary route first, then they'll do their middle school route. And so they're picking up some hours that way and also being able to cover all of our routes so far. And so I just kudos to them. Also, we have our administrators meeting, our monthly meeting, and we canceled that for this month just so our administrators can be in the buildings and so we can make sure that if they're needed as well. And then today what we started is a Google form, and I sent this Google form to all cabinet members, all of our instructional coaches, and our coordinators at the district office, and they blocked out segments of time that they have free this week, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, so that they'll be able to also go out into the schools and sub. And it's just a really nice opportunity for us to be in the schools, but also the fact that everyone is so willing. As soon as I leave here, we'll go put that together for our subs for tomorrow. So for example, tomorrow we have, right before I came in, we have 60 openings for tomorrow. And that will increase as the night goes on. We'll continue to have people call in, and so we'll continue to try and cover for those positions. And so right now we only have 11 positions that are open, so that's really pretty good in the sense by canceling, for example, those PDs and that professional development. And so I will go fill in those 11 positions with staffing, as I spoke to you about, as far as from that spreadsheet. I also today had a letter go out to our existing staff or our existing substitutes, just urging them to make sure that they update their availability. It's a little deceiving because it looks like we have a lot of subs and we have enough that we should be able to cover all of these positions. But what turns out to be on that sub list is in some cases schools have something that's called a super sub, so those substitutes only go to certain buildings, okay? And then we have some that are our part-time teachers that can only sub obviously when they're not teaching. And then there's quite an amount that have the availability, but tend to maybe not take as many jobs as they have shown that they're available for. So sometimes it can be a little deceiving on how many subs there really are. And so a letter went out today just asking them and urging them to make sure that they update their schedule so that we have a more accurate count of who's available for us. And then we also just, communicating that all the PPE supplies, anything that schools need, we have those available for them as well. And then, again, like Courtney mentioned, that we're monitoring those student attendance. And so I just wanted to update you on some of the things that we're doing as far as to make sure that those classrooms are covered and that we're working more together and that all of us are a part of the solution.
Okay, maybe if I could follow up and just fill in the blanks. I appreciated Ms. Clark's email from yesterday or this morning.
This morning.
Yeah. In regard to some questions about this very thing. Apologize. And so what, in regard to, say, an emergency closure day, what we have kind of prepared in our minds, what would that look like? And essentially, it would come down to staffing and to see where we would be at. And that's why we've called for this all hands on deck approach from instructional coaches to directors and myself, whatever it takes to try to fill those positions across the district. Essentially for learners, if they are coming, we are going to do our best to serve them. You maybe find a point there, at what point would the instruction suffer because so many are gone that you're trying to provide some supplement at home or not much, if anything at all. And so we would look at those emergency closure days, not necessarily as a week-long event, because we know that that would take its toll, especially on our elementary learners. Although they have a Google Chromebook checked out to them, just getting that up and running would be, as I've talked with Mrs. Craney, kind of a week-long deal. And what we have in place is we have some emergency lessons that could be structured so that they could be taught out of sequence, but still be very relevant to our learners. But again, that would be probably a week-long deal. As we've talked with Ms. Mann at Southeast Idaho Public Health, again, as Courtney pointed out, we're looking at 10 days to 2 weeks, essentially. Again, those numbers, that's all predicted. And so we don't know if we would necessarily need a week out. So it might be, again, a day at a time based upon our staffing. But I think with learners, a few years back, I think it was 4 or 5 years ago, we kind of had a percentage in our mind of about 75 to 80%. If it hit down below, 3/4 into 2/3 area, then there becomes a point of, not great return on our investment. And so at that point, between a lack of cohesive instruction with perhaps a different sub in a classroom every day, as well as a number of learners being gone each day. And so we would just have to evaluate and say, okay, there's probably a point here where we may need to call an emergency closure and notify the board. So I hope that answers your questions in regard to that. If you have some more, the 3 of us, and Ms. Wilkes is here to entertain any as well in regards to activities and athletics.
I have some more questions.
Okay, we will take them.
Jotting them down. Do you feel that February 8th is soon enough to review the roadmap?
I'll go ahead and take that. I think it is, because we will be able to know at that point where we are, maybe in those projections a little bit better. It could be a little early. We might see a big increase here, as we have. Mrs. Minor pointed that out. If it stays that high, then maybe we rethink that and bump it up a week or something.
Okay.
But for now, that might give us
Still feeling
a
okay.
little bit of time to see how this all works itself out. If the board would like, after tonight's nomination and election for board chair, I could be in constant contact with the board chair and ask about, again, moving that up, and perhaps it would be a special meeting outside of the others that we already have scheduled.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
One other thing, when we spoke with Ms. Mann, she did say that her feelings of that 10-day to 2-week peak, as much as that line is vertical going up, her hope and what her projection was is hoping that it would continue to go down just, in the same fashion like we saw at Christmas time, how low it was. We were hopeful then.
It's anticipated to be short-lived.
Right, okay. The next question I had with regard to what is the protocol right now? And maybe I just need to read more on the roadmap as far as, because the one thing I'm certain is happening, because I know it happened, is not reporting. And so some of these numbers we know are inaccurate, right? I mean, they're a lot less than we are expecting. At least that's what I'm hearing. And so what is I guess we just take whatever anybody reports. What is the same protocol for staff as far as them reporting their case? Is there a requirement there?
I'm going to first ask you to go ahead and pull that microphone over a little
okay,
closer.
sorry.
No, you're good.
I think
Echo.
those of us in the room.
You can hear me,
you. I
but
just wonder about
yeah.
the folks at home.
Yeah, so my question is what are the protocols for reporting and then testing? Because I think what's happening is either people are not reporting, sending their kids to school sick, regardless. We're assuming it might even be the flu, and so we just send our kids to school. And is there similar testing that goes on or requirements for testing for teachers? And this is just more of I'm not judging how things are. I'm just curious to what is the protocols right now.
Do you want to go ahead and talk about staffing, and then I'll
You bet.
do the best I can.
So for staff, what happens is that anyone who has went to a medical provider, anything that is not just a home test, if it has a positive, they send their documentation. or their school sent their documentation to me. We have approved that they are able to receive 5 COVID days
Okay.
in addition to the 14 sick days that they already are given as part of their contract, right? Or as part of their employment.
And is
so-
that a required 5-day, I mean, so the sick days, they can take as many or as less, but is the COVID 5 days a requirement?
that they take all 5 of those days. As the CDC has changed, we just decided I should say the board decided that they had granted those 5 days. I don't know if you remember, but it seems like a lifetime ago, but when COVID started, there was a Families First Act, and they granted so many days, right? And then that ended on December 31st.
Right.
And so the board extended that, and last year we granted days back just so that people weren't using all of their sick days, and we were able to get reimbursed those I think it was the May board meeting, wasn't it, Paul? And so we were able to reimburse those back just because of how important sick days are as far as being able to keep those. And so then it was voted on again that we would grant up to 5 days is how I guess I should word that, as far as COVID days that they could be reimbursed if they have a positive test. We went with being pretty strict on the fact that it needed to be from a medical provider or somewhere like that, just because home tests, I definitely don't want to see anyone administering a home test, right, to watch
Right.
that. And so we have went with the medical provider, and people send me the documentation, and then there's a code that's set up in our in payroll attendance that it has that COVID code that they can mark, and that's covered. And so what happens as far as with staff is, as the CDC guidelines change, that's been where we see a big difference. We don't necessarily always see a big difference in the doctor's notes, but the latest from the CDC and that we sent out to the secretaries spoke of 5 days after onset of symptoms. So in some cases, it's been kind of alarming maybe to some people when they think, oh my gosh, they've just left and now they're back.
Right.
But in all reality, sometimes people have symptoms for quite a while before they kind of go in to get tested, just because I mean, I know in my case, you want to wait it out and think, oh, it's a sniffle or it's a cold or those kinds of things. And so if they go back and really trace that onset of symptoms, it could be as easy as, they start having symptoms on Thursday, so they have Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we had Monday off. They could be back to work today.
Right.
And so in some cases, teachers maybe didn't even miss in those 5 days. And again, that recommendation which came from the board was masks are recommended, but that's at their choice.
Okay, thank you.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
It does.
And with students, very similar in that we've tried to work around the days of recommended days. And so where we've gone from 10 to 7 to
14 to 10 to 7.
14 to
now
10,
to 5.
To 5.
And so that turnaround time, if you were to receive, say, a false negative in that first time or two of testing, you wouldn't even necessarily know.
Right.
And we've had some experiences even within our own building that was definitely the case. And so we've tried to encourage our administrators to administer a greater realm of flexibility to those students who are ill or feeling ill. And we know too that medical providers now, due to such a high demand on the testing protocols and supplies, that they may test one person in the family and just again make that assumption forward that others within the family will get it. So we will ask our attendant secretaries and those at the elementary, the secretaries, to just make note in Infinite Campus and then again be flexible with that time frame. But as far as requiring them to be home, I think you'd also ask a question in that email to us about the kind of that contact tracing element. And talking with our partners at Southeast Idaho Public Health, I think they've decided that it's not futile, but it doesn't give us a lot of information moving forward. And by the time we receive that information and try to act on it,
It's difficult.
Yeah.
Right.
And so we've not gone that route this year, again, just following that guidance or that lead, if you will. And so we've not done any of that. What we are doing beginning this week, we hadn't done it when we first returned because we hadn't seen the numbers quite as high as they've begun to spike this last week or less, really, that we will have our buildings send out a daily notice on those cases that have been medically determined. And
Okay.
so if there's a report from, and I'm just going to make up a school that we don't have, Adams Elementary, if they were to receive, 3 positive cases medically documented today and 2 tomorrow, so each day they would send out, 3, at the end of the day, we received 3 medically documented cases in our school. Tomorrow might be 2. The next day, if they have 0, they wouldn't send any out. So we'll do that for at least 2 weeks and then monitor that and determine if we need to continue that or say the next month as we watch and see what happens with these numbers.
And I would add too that testing, the demands on testing have made the situation even more
Right.
challenging. We heard reports that there were 3-hour waits for
There were tons
the
of
testing,
people.
right? And then home tests are becoming less available. They're also unreliable. So it's just a challenge overall.
Sure.
And I guess our hope is that we'll be able to see the trend if we keep the information consistent. So if we're only looking at those cases that, for example, show their documentation at the school or the same for staff, that we'll be able to see the trend. And when you look at this, you kind of start to see that just from where the peak was in September. And again, that number's going back up. And then using it as just one metric, as we also do student attendance, because that's really the student attendance and staff attendance. That's really the bottom line that's going to catch those that are not coming in as documented that we have marked as quarantine.
So my final question is just, and I appreciate some of these measures that you're taking this week, canceling things, and how are we handling the toll that it's taking on the teachers? I mean, I'm getting emails, comments from friends that are teachers that are just overwhelmed with, covering, not having prep time. I mean, are you thinking of measures to kind of abate that as well? I mean, one suggestion someone said is, do we go to a 4-day school week so that Fridays go online, just to give teachers some breathing room? I don't know if is that being considered, or is that on the table? I don't even know.
Again, and this could be a topic for the roadmap, but at the time, we determined that 5 days a week is what our true goal is for our community. And I think Bonneville went to a 4-1 kind of split with a virtual day on Friday. I'm not sure if they're continuing to do that. I know they did it part of the year. And then comes the challenge, as it would in any 4-day week, is what do you do on the 5th day? And some students are going to be very productive, some not as much. We know that. And so essentially, that's 20% of our learning. Hybrid schedule, you can get mixed reviews on that from last year. You get a whole nother take on remote instruction altogether. So would this be a blend where we could find maybe a happy medium? Perhaps. Again, just given the time frame and what the projections are, we want to see our learners in school each and every day. That is our goal over the next few weeks. Each of our staff members were compensated for extra duty assignments, and they all received a stipend for that. So that goes above and beyond the school day, which is essentially what we're talking about here. That and the coverage, I think, whether it's our classified staff who are helping in the classrooms as instructional leaders, as teachers, or whether it's our teachers covering for other teachers, they are all receiving additional compensation for those extra duties. And so I think the combination of things, and there's that whole mental, emotional.
I was going to say, sometimes money.
Right. And we recognize that too, but I think in any occupation in our culture, our society, more is being asked of us than ever in terms of tough decisions by this board, in terms of what we do to try our best to implement that at a building, in a classroom, bus drivers, food service, just across everything that we do. And so it has been a challenging year again, and I hope that we'll get some relief eventually. But again, I think to make those kind of commitments based upon the projections of, say, a 4-day week might be just a little early. If we get into this another week or two, then we can certainly ask the board to entertain something like that. But yeah, we just, we'll navigate best we can on pretty much a daily basis,
Right.
really. Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
I have a question about about the positive tests,
Uh-huh.
with the lack of tests, and then paying for more doctor visit when you've got 2 members of the family that have tested positive, paid for the doctor visit. You mentioned that would be acceptable for the flexibility for the other members of the family, or are you requiring them to also go get a negative test? I mentioned, you said you were asking for flexibility in the schools to accept that as a COVID.
Yeah, so we can put it in
Excuse.
as a note, if there's
Oh,
another
okay.
household member.
So if it's a household member, then it works as a COVID
I
excused
think
absence.
that's what we talked about this morning.
Correct,
Okay,
yeah.
'cause
They're not.
Well,
they're
the only one that
COVID
we're
excused.
taking the test for is staff members so that they can get those 5 days reimbursed. Now, keep in mind, if they don't want to, or any of those things, they're more than welcome. It's not by any means that they can't use their sick days. Do you know what I mean? I just want to have them have the opportunity to have 5 of those days be reimbursed.
Yes.
But at the school
Yeah,
level, it's
most of
only marked a COVID absence if they have that documentation for that individual. If it's a family
That was my
member,
question.
if it's a family member, then it's marked in the notes. It's marked ill, but it's marked in the notes that
So
they
it's
either have
not
a
an
home test,
excused absence.
still excused.
So it is.
But it's not COVID.
Okay, but it is excused as if it were a doctor's note from them?
You know, when we look at students, I think that depending on how long this goes, and I know that we have talked about this before, it's just that flexibility of looking at a learner on kind of an individualized basis, right? So like if they have a history of attendance, let's say, and they've missed 30 days before, and then something comes up, then, you know, there may be that discussion. But if it's in a time frame where those days are all consistent, I mean, that may be looked at differently as far as if you get to the point of truancy court and those types of things. But attendance for a student, again, doesn't have anything where those days are put back in as far as being in attendance. So it looks a little bit different than for staff.
Okay, but it is universal that if other family members,
Yeah, we
have
can
the
put a
positive.
note in
Okay, I
the
see.
Infinite Campus reporting.
I
Uh-huh.
see. Okay,
And as Mrs. Minor pointed out, it would be more of an individual basis, and that is a little more taxing for sure on our administrators to go back and look at those, you know, high reports of absence or excessive absence, what might be considered excessive. And then we have essentially a committee at each school. It would be administrator, the counselor, perhaps a teacher, working with the parent at the home and looking at grades and were they able to keep up their work through, you know, homework, through illness and assignment or Google or whatever it happens to be. And so if the grades are there, there's not a pattern or history, the likelihood of that student, you know, receiving the grade without any formal, you know, action taken is much improved under these circumstances, as it may not would have been, excuse me, as it may not have been in years.
okay, so it's not universal that it's accepted for a family member, it's based on individual students. Okay,
Okay, did that help? That was a lot, and I
Yeah.
think we kind of got around to the answer. So,
I just have
Yeah.
one really quick more
Oh, you
question
bet.
on substitutes and
Uh-huh.
recruitment of substitutes. I think it was in the fall that was it ISU that offered to their faculty to come substitute, or was there?
So Governor Little put out, how should I say, kind of like a
A call
all
for
help, right, call for
All
help. That's
hands on deck.
right, kind of the same thing that we're doing. And that went through December 15th,
Okay.
and is where that was funded. However, some of those subs, and granted there wasn't a ton, I wish I could tell you there was a ton, but we had a few, and they're still willing to come and sub on their day off, if it's a day off. And so that's been a really kind of neat thing to see. And so, for example, there's a couple people from ISU where that option has been available. And so they're still able to come in and sub just under their own will to want to, so. And then also, just as far as subbing, we try a lot of other things with ISU. So for example, if you're a student teacher and your cooperating teacher's gone, then they're able to sub in that classroom for pay as well. And so just trying to work with the Department of Education at ISU and seeing if we can get some people in on their days that if they have a Monday, Wednesday class or Tuesday, Thursday, that they can come in and sub. And so we have monthly sub meetings to try and bring those people in as well.
Very good.
So in the earlier part of their graduation, in the earlier part, like the second, third year, students would also be able to come in on their days off?
Absolutely, and sub, and just making sure and that, we can get them in and get that paperwork in and get them started and see if they even like it.
I'm glad that the Department of Education will allow that, because sometimes they don't allow them to sub.
Yeah, we have quite a few students from ISU that sub.
That's great.
We will communicate to the public that the roadmap will be on the work session agenda. So that's another thing we benchmark is the communication from our stakeholders. So you'll notice as that gets closer, we will likely begin to receive emails and phone calls regarding this topic. And it will be all across the board of
I'm
opinions.
sure.
Fun. There we go again, huh?
Right. Hopefully short-lived. Any other questions? If not, feel free to contact us if you do.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, appreciate you. Okay, at this time, now's the time for board reorganization, annual meeting. We will start with election of officers, and I will pass the gavel to superintendent.
Okay, how about if we do that passing virtually? We'll just
Yep.
say it's here. And all.
I can throw it at you.
You don't have to get up and interrupt the meeting. So for tonight, election of officers, I will take nominations for board chair, and then after that, then I'll turn it over to the board chair, and then that person will pick it up from there. I do want to remind you, as was in the notes from last week's meeting, in regard to the office of board chair, and really some of this might be applicable to other positions too, to a certain degree, vice chair and clerk, assistant clerk, so forth. But interest in serving, also experience on the board, holding a previous office on the board, availability, and willingness to be the spokesperson for the board. And so at this time, I will accept nominations for board chair.
I nominate Jim Facer
I second.
as the board chair.
Okay, I have a nomination for Mr. Facer and a second. Any other nominations? Okay, I'll close the nominations and ask for a vote for Mr. Facer as board chair for Pocatello Chubbuck School District for the 2020, what is it, 22, but it'll be into 23, really, school year. Yeah, because we'll start the fall. This is so odd, the middle of the year, so I apologize. I'm thinking. All those in favor of Mr. Facer as board chair?
Aye.
Any opposed? I hear all in favor, so Mr. Facer, Mr. Chair,
Thank you.
I return that gavel back to you.
Thank you. Okay, now I will call for nominations for vice chair. Is there a nomination?
I nominate Deanna Judy.
I nominate Paul Vitale.
Okay.
Okay, I have two nominations. Do I have a second on either one of them?
I second Paul.
Okay, I have a nomination for Paul Vitale, and I have a second. Is there a discussion? Is there, all in favor? Aye. Okay. Okay, Paul, you are the vice
All
chair.
right.
I now call for nomination for assistant clerk. Is there a nomination?
Is that one of us? I thought it was.
Yes.
So the clerk is by de facto, if you will, but really the board takes action on that. That would be, is it clerk?
Yeah.
That's you. Yeah, I was thinking ahead to finance and so forth.
Assistant clerk.
Yeah, so this is assistant clerk.
Oh,
And then we'll.
did I not say assistant clerk? I'm sorry, I did.
Yeah, you did.
You
did.
I thought I saw somewhere that it was already
And then we have assistant
Designated.
treasurer, which then Mr. Balls would serve as the treasurer. But, yeah, providing that direction for the board, consulting with either clerk or the treasurer. That's essentially what the roles would be. The clerk, assistant clerk, you'd have a number of things that you have to autograph based upon the action taken by the board.
I nominate Heather Clark,
Or which one, Mr. Vitale, sorry?
the
I didn't mean to confuse.
Assistant clerk,
clerk.
Assistant.
Okay. There you go.
that's where we're at. Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I guess I should have asked for the discussion, but I didn't. I guess we're okay. Everybody did.
If I'll have to sign things, then yeah. I can Renee definitely has things in hand, so.
Okay. I now call for nomination for an assistant treasurer. Is there a nomination?
Does anybody want it?
Do you want to do it, Angie?
You can do it.
Okay.
I'll nominate
Okay,
Deanna.
Okay, I have a nomination for Deanna. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I have a nomination and a second. Any discussion? Are you okay with that?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that has passed. Next, the board will appoint the treasurer, the clerk, and backup clerks. It is recommended that the board appoint Mr. Jonathan Balls as treasurer, Ms. Renee Johnson as clerk, and Ms. Tara Jensen and Ms. Cheryl Marley as backup clerks. Is there a motion?
I move that we do that.
Okay. Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that motion is passed. Wow, we got a lot of this, huh? Okay, the next board will appoint a custodian of public records. It is recommended that the board appoint Ms. Courtney Fisher and Ms. Renee Johnson as custodians of public records. Is there a motion?
I motion we accept the slate.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there a discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 That motion is passed. Next, the board will appoint the district auditor for the 2022-2023 school year. It is recommended that the board appoint Deaton and Company as the district's independent auditor for the 2022-2023 school year. Is there a motion?
I move that we appoint Deaton as the auditor.
Is there a second?
I second.
Is there a discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 That motion is passed. Next, the board will designate the posting locations. It is recommended that the board designate the Educational Service Center, designate the website, and district social media sites, including Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. In addition, meeting notices are sent to local media representatives. Is there a second? Is there a motion?
I hereby move the board designate the Education Service Center, district website, district social media sites as posting locations for the 22-23 school year as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. That motion is passed. Next, on the agenda is volunteer for board committees. Board committees include the Calendar Committee, the SIP Long Range Planning Committee, the District Curriculum Committee, and Outdoor Athletic Facility Committee. Are there any volunteers for the Calendar Committee?
So, Mr. Chairman, if it'd be all right, I could just give you a quick overview
Okay.
of each of those committees and how often they meet and their responsibility and so forth. So we have a calendar committee presently that is being in the wheelhouse of Mrs. Craney. And probably two, normally no more than 3 meetings. Would that be accurate? Just one. And November, December timeframe, and then we usually try to have that prepared and ready for the board this time of year, around the first of the year, or we even take action sometimes in December if we have it ready. And so, again, not much fluctuation usually with the calendar. Next up is the SIP, or Long Range Planning Committee, Capital Improvements. This is the money that comes in by way of school plant facility dollars, and it's a regular maintenance schedule that's looked at, as well as requests from the buildings. And so that is usually held in the fall, October, November, December, and then with recommendations to the entire board by usually December. Okay. And then the curriculum committee meets once a month, sometimes a little bit less, maybe more often. This would be a review of textbook materials, requests or proposals for new classes or a change in class. Sometimes career technical comes up in that, and as well as any other curriculum and instruction issues. And then fourth, Outdoor Athletic Facilities Planning Committee. This is that ongoing committee, similar to the SIP, but specifically looking at our activities throughout the district. And Ms. Wilkes has done a fabulous job taking that on, as I asked her to do when she started with the district. And so we are in basically year 2 of our 5-year that will be ongoing and hopefully renew each year with direction. You usually meet, Ms. Wilkes, in the fall as well. Do you have spring meetings as well?
We'll have well, I was gonna actually schedule one today until we canceled everything, but we usually have one after the SIP has made their decision, so we can share that out and talk about it as well. So at least twice, possibly 3 times a year.
Okay, all right. So, and if you have more questions about the committees, I'd be happy to answer those for you.
Okay, so to the calendar committee, do we have anyone that would like to volunteer for that?
I can do that.
Okay. We only have 2 on a committee, right?
Yes, otherwise it's a quorum, and
Right.
then we have to post and
Okay.
minutes and all of that. Mhm.
Anybody else? Okay, so we have 1. And if down the road you want to get on a committee that's got only 1 on, we can do that, right?
You bet.
Okay. Any volunteers for the SIP committee?
I'd like to do
I
that.
would. Yeah, I talked to Jim earlier.
Yeah.
That would be great.
So we can only have 2, right?
Mhm.
So is someone already on it? Or either?
I'm already on it
Oh, are you?
right now.
Okay,
And
Have been.
that's fine.
Mhm. Yeah, that'll probably rotate, right? Don't all these committees kind of
Could.
rotate
Mhm.
and
yeah,
the
a year
positions
or 2
rotate?
typically. Mhm.
Yeah, that's what I,
I thought for sure you would have done curriculum.
Well, maybe she still will.
Oh, that's true.
Okay.
You
so
can be on
do
more
we
than
have-
one.
Did you get the names?
I have to be on 100%.
Oh, you did put me down?
Okay, that's fine.
But I don't want to.
No,
we
yeah,
do that where if you guys even want to alternate, if one of you can't go, then the other one can go in your place.
I just didn't know if Jim was still gonna stay on, so.
no, that'll be fine. If you guys want to do that, it's a good opportunity to,
Okay.
and it's, like you said, it's only in the fall, and it's only maybe 2 or 3 meetings. But it's worthwhile. It's gives you a good idea of what's going on with the maintenance and all the building and all the stuff that's going on, so I'll let you do that.
yeah.
Okay. Curriculum committee.
I'll go on that one.
I
Okay.
could do that one too,
Okay.
if we can have 2.
Okay, and then the outdoor athletic facility. I'll volunteer for that one. Anybody else want to?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, Mr. Chair, I
Yes.
don't know if we caught item
Where's
F
the calendar?
on the calendar.
Item F?
Yeah.
Yeah. If I missed that on the outline, then the agenda behind you is on
The-
there. It's the
the
2023 school board meeting.
All right.
And I think as it's been revised, we changed up the work sessions to 3:30, and the board trainings to 3:30, and student hearings to 3:30, just to keep those consistent and to meet the schedule that you all agreed upon last week. And as far as the board trainings, we talked about, we do some more We looked into that, and ISBA reimburses, or no, excuse me, it's the state. The state will reimburse up to $6,600 in a fiscal year for training. And so with that money, I figure we could pick up 3 to start, and then there were 6 modules, and then we can pick up the other 3, as well as these other opportunities for learning that will
So
come.
3 people at a time? Is that what
Nope,
you're
that
saying?
will be the whole board.
3
Oh,
sessions.
I see.
Yeah, yeah.
So 3 modules at a time
Yeah,
for all of us?
Excuse me, yeah, so
Okay.
we'll get one, I think we've got February, April.
Yeah, February, March, and April.
February, March, and
On the
April.
calendar.
Okay, yeah, for those 3 days. And then, was there anything else that changed?
There was a correction is in the addendum, and that was to switch the student discipline hearings and the regular board meeting title on the dates in September.
Okay,
They were
They're just backwards of each other, so.
all right.
And will the 3:30, the student discipline used to be at 4, is that right?
No, it was.
Oh, it was,
3:30.
it was at 3:30
Yeah,
before,
so
okay.
we'll kind of consistently-
It'll be the same, okay.
And so the only other meeting would be, this one will be at 5:30, so continue, so.
Yeah,
And those trainings will take place in here, I assume?
Yes.
and then as far as school visits, which we have calendared for the first Tuesday, I think in addition to support you with kind of some new information in your new position, is that rather than do school visits for the first 3 months, we'll just have you work with each department and visit with the director in charge of those different departments on a 45, so we'll ask about an hour and a half of your time on that first Tuesday, and we can schedule 8, 9 o'clock, whatever works best for you. And so you'll spend 45 minutes with one director, 2 of you will, and then 2 of you will spend 45 minutes with another director, and after 45 minutes, we'll switch. One of you, which I would present to the board, but would be the seasoned or more experienced board members, we'll send one of you out on a school visit in February,
Sure.
March, and April.
Good, yeah.
And then the other one will pick up with the other 3 board members in that 2-2 rotation.
Oh.
And we'll just get you kind of an overarching, all of those acronyms and abbreviations that we were throwing at you last week a little bit. We'll help you understand those a little bit better, as well as what we do in this building, and then how that helps support all of our learners across the district.
So what was the date for the facilities? Is there a date yet? Did you say a date? The facility at 9
It'll be
or?
in October sometime.
Yeah, they're usually October, November, and we'll schedule those, about 3 weeks? somewhere around there?
Oh,
Usually go through
no,
that.
I mean what you were just saying.
School
The
visits?
school, for
Oh,
us
yes.
3,
Yeah.
It'll be all
departments.
for all 5 of you.
Right.
So 4 of you will be here in this building. We'll have one, Mr. Vitale or Mr. Facer, one of those gentlemen, go out for an actual school
Yes,
visit. The
and
other
so what-
4 will be here for
And that's the
department
first Tuesday.
visits.
Yes, and what was the date of that?
First Tuesday.
Those will
First
start the first Tuesday of February.
Okay, sorry
And then
about
it's the
that.
first Tuesday of March and April, and then by May, we'll get you all out into buildings.
Okay, so first Tuesday of every month.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah, unless you're not
Sorry, I
available,
wasn't
and then
listening.
we can work around your schedule. Sometimes we reschedule, sometimes we just pick it up the next month. If you
Okay.
have other, some personal commitments or something. Okay,
And a couple
so I hope that makes sense. And so we'll just need action on that item.
To approve the calendar?
Yeah.
Okay. It's not on my agenda, so,
I hereby move that the board adopt
okay.
the
Yeah.
22-23.
I hereby move that the board adopt the 2022-2023 board calendar. Is there a motion?
I'll second it.
Yeah, there you go. I think Ms. Clark gave.
Okay, I'm sorry.
The second here, so we
Um,
got the motion second.
okay.
Now,
Is there a discussion on that calendar? Okay, I
Mm-mm.
think we already had it,
I
so.
guess I just have a question. That can be changed if there's any need, right? Okay, I thought so. I
Yeah.
just thought I would ask.
Okay,
like
all-
the questions. Don't hesitate to ask.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That motion is passed. Is that all that we need for right now?
I think that's it for now.
Okay.
Now we'll get into
So we'll move on to curriculum instruction, school safety, and athletics. We will start with elementary education. Laurie Craney will report on.
Some of the items that I always report on,
Yep.
right? We have first the Idaho Food Bank Backpack Program report, and it is in your packet. What we do is we track the number of backpacks that we distribute, the food backpacks that we distribute every month. And so we work in conjunction with the Idaho Food Bank. They bring the backpacks over here. They're bags loaded with food that we distribute to our learners who will need them for like food over the weekend. And so every month you'll see how many that we do distribute. In December, we had 1,019, and so what our counselors and our community resource workers did was they loaded them up. They knew that our families, there would be students at home for a couple of extra weeks, and so they did get some extra backpacks there. It fluctuates as learners move around the district, and sometimes we have pantries that supply their needs, and also you'll notice some fluctuation. The weekly allotment, it does come from the Idaho Food Bank. So they're the ones that establish that, and we just distribute here. Our community resource workers, which we have at 8 of our elementary schools, our middle and our high schools, and then counselors are the ones who do the distribution of those. Okay, next we have the Head Start. We have a Head Start board report, and then we'll be talking about the compliance resolution. So every month, as part of the board, we share information about Head Start enrollment, staffing, and also you'll know every month you'll be hearing some things about Head Start. So they have ERSI, which is our enrollment. At the end of December of 2021, the program had 163 children enrolled. 2 children withdrew. After noting that a majority of the Head Start programs were not fully enrolled by December 31st of 2021, the Office of Head Start suspended the special monitoring protocol of programs who were under-enrolled for the remainder of the 21-22 program year. So we do always try to keep our enrollment being at our max with waiting lists, but these have been different years, these last couple years, so that has been suspended for a while. The attendance for November was at 84.4%, and illness was the number one reason, and continued to mostly impact the full-day classrooms, of which we have 5 that go 6 hours a day. For personnel, the program has 4 recent openings: a family advocate, a food service cook at Lincoln, an education coach, and a part-day teacher. The teacher and the cook positions have now been filled. The program continues to seek 2 part-day teacher assistants and a classroom aide and 2 program specialists. The Policy Council, which we had the president of the Policy Council here I guess it was just last week. They'll be attending the annual Head Start Association Conference, February 8th through 10th. The conference and meetings with state representatives and senators from our district will be conducted virtually. For facilities, the facility carryover request has been approved. The district is finalizing the bid specifications on the modular units and the contractor for preparing the site at Lincoln. We're extremely happy to see the project move forward. An annual self-assessment. The program has begun its annual self-assessment process. An updated self-assessment plan will be presented to you at the regular February 2022 board meeting for review. Okay, next. Oh my heavens. Oh, there it is. Sorry, my notes, it's like they stuck together. At the work session last week, Ms. Losmack, Dr. Howell, and I presented information on the Head Start interim rule and the court cases concerning masks and vaccinations. At that time, you were presented with a resolution to consider at this board meeting. Basically, the resolution asks for your permission for our local Head Start program to flexibly comply with the Office of Head Start performance standards on any applicable court decisions, including those related to vaccination, masking, testing, and applicable exemption requirements relating to COVID-19. In the week's time since we met, the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Louisiana, the Monroe Division's court case, has come into question regarding the scope of the impact outside of the 24 states. Idaho was not one of the 24 states and thus not within the scope of this injunction. The federal government has yet to have filed an appeal with regard to the Louisiana case. Additionally, rulings were made last week to further complicate the issue. The U.S. Supreme Court blocked OSHA's vaccine or testing rule for large employers, yet allowed the Federal Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services to require COVID-19 vaccination for healthcare workers at Medicare and Medicaid certified providers. It's important for the Pocatello Head Start to continually monitor the course of these cases and to stay in compliance with the regulations. Failure to do so would likely jeopardize the district's Head Start funding. The resolution included in your packet recognizes that the Head Start program serves 183 preschool-age children within the area with an annual budget of over $2 million from the Office of Head Start. The resolution would direct the Head Start program to operate in compliance with all Head Start standards, including any determinations from controlling courts. You're asked to consider the resolution under action items with a recommendation from the administration to approve. And I would like to reiterate that this resolution would only apply to the Head Start program. Any decisions regarding all other K-12 instructional programs and activities would be separately determined by the Board of Trustees. Are there any questions on the Head Start?
I just remember last week you said that it would, they wouldn't, the 3 to 5 year olds would not be required to wear masks unless it becomes, unless it was a court ruling that they needed to. Is that right?
Right now, it's in the performance standards with that so the Office of Head Start put this into the performance standards. So it's one of the performance standards that, you know, the students the age of our Head Start program would be asked to wear, and we do our best to get them to wear masks.
Oh, so they have to wear.
So it is a mask mandate for all, you know, students, staff members, and then the vaccination requirement for the staff and any volunteers or contractors that would come in contact with our learners.
Oh, okay. I was thinking that it was that the resolution was that you would continue as you were unless the court made a decision forcing.
Well, and then as things are changing like every minute, we're having a little bit of trouble keeping track of it. But within that court case that we were, it was the injunction from that Monroe district in Louisiana that we were riding kind of on the coattails of that. And yet within that, when those 24 states that joined together were the ones that court case, the ruling goes for those 24 states, but not others that were not part of that.
So they were not able to, they kept it. They kept the mandate.
Right.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
I understand.
You are absolutely correct.
Mhm.
It's hard to
In fact, it was,
understand.
During our meeting last week, during the work session, that Mrs. Craney received an email in regard to the injunction at the time. So we were working under the impression or the understanding that Idaho was part of that. And then she received a subsequent email from another Head Start. So I think one was regional, one even more broad than that perhaps. And so both of those have affirmed that Idaho did not qualify because we were not one of the 24 states. That is our
I
current
see.
understanding.
I
And
see.
our legal counsel has also concluded after a review that that is what we are working with at this time. She also said, our legal counsel, Ms. White, said that within 10 days from the time that Mrs. Craney sent that follow-up email, that we should have perhaps some decisions. Now, I don't know of anything that works through a court system that fast, but this should be a high priority, I would think. So it could potentially change at any point in time.
And if it does,
Mhm.
And if it does, then the
Then we'll
resolution that this board could entertain and potentially adopt tonight would just to follow the legal requirements that mandate what Head Start does, separate and apart from any other program in School District 25.
okay.
Because it is essentially another entity. And as I presented last week, we are only one district in all of Idaho that works this closely with the Head Start program under your direction, other than North Idaho College.
Okay. And then you'll be addressing that under the action items.
Right.
For the 21st Century After School program is a program that we have in 8 of our schools. We're currently operating under 2 grants. And there is no, I just give a verbal report on that, and there will be inside of your packet, there will be a memo there describing that because we're getting ready to submit a grant. The one round of our grant is Tindoy, Green Acres, Tyhee, and Wilcox. Another grant is at Jefferson, Lewis, and Clark, Irving Middle School, and Washington. Our after-school programs run at Monday through Thursday until approximately 5:30. Each site provides services to approximately 30 students. Students are referred to the program through teams at the school. The principal works with the social workers, with counselors and teachers to make recommendations for students to invite into the program. The after-school program hires the staff. It consists of a site coordinator at each site, each school, and 2 assistants so that we can maintain a 1-to-10 ratio. The program director is Kim Hawkins, and she oversees the program. She hires and trains the staff. She monitors every aspect of the program. She collects data. There's a lot of state reporting that goes on, and so she takes care of that. And right now, she and I are working with principals on grant writing. Within our programs, one of the main features of them is that they provide academic support, and they also provide enrichment activities. We have very strong community partners, some of which are the Marshall and Portneuf Libraries, the ISU Museum, the 4-H Nutrition and Robotics. We have a scouting program that has leadership, and they've been involved for many, many years in our programs and continue to be very active partners. So Tindoy, Green Acres, Tyhee, and Wilcox grant includes a preschool program. And this is the 2nd year of that grant operating since we've written the grant for a renewal. We have 16 students from the Green Acres, Tindoy area that attend a preschool program at Tindoy for about a little over 2 hours a day, and they focus on kindergarten readiness skills. So they come every afternoons, and we have a wonderful program there. It's really fun to see. It was a new ground for us, and so we were excited about it. The way that we recruit for that is we send out notices for that area. Interested parents contact the school, and we have a very dynamic teacher, so I think word of mouth has spread there. We started it in the Green Acres, Tindoy area because we noticed the scores of those entering the kindergarten. When we tested them in the fall, they were the lowest in the district, and we wanted to do something. We said, we have a population here that we maybe can make an impact if we add the preschool program, and it's been very successful. So the Irving, Lewis, and Clark, Washington, and Jefferson grant ends at the conclusion of this school year. The grant that we're writing right now is due January 28th. It will serve 120 students, and it will be for $157,000 a year for 5 years. There's a memo in your packet that provides some of the details of the grant. We will be adding Ellis as one of the schools and not adding Irving this next time. Although Irving, we thought we tried it for a few years here with Irving, but our attendance has been really hard to maintain at Irving, and we attribute it to a robust extracurricular activities. When you have, cross country going on at school or basketball going on at school, our learners would rather be doing that than going to the after-school program. And one of the things that we have to do is we have to maintain attendance in those. So we are going to add Ellis to that. Ellis has around 50% free and reduced lunch rate, which the schools that we serve are some of our higher free and reduced lunch rate schools. The grant is going to be similar to the other grants. It offers academic support, enrichment opportunities, and community partnership. We did a needs assessment for these, and we found that 30% of our 4th and 5th grade students that were surveyed in those 4 schools indicated that they only 30% indicated that they participated in any out-of-school activities. We felt that was very low, so this is a good population that we can be serving and providing some of those enrichment activities. We're going to address those needs for these experiences in the grant. Also within the grant, we had a survey that was conducted at Washington with the parents there, and the parents noted a need for training for helping their learners build perseverance. We capitalized on that, and then we surveyed our students to determine the level of growth mindset qualities, the qualities of persistence, self-efficacy, the stick-to-itiveness, the grit. And there were 54 points possible that would be the highest that they would show their highest growth mindset. And our students averaged 17. So we saw this then as being an area of need that we would include in the grant. So we're going to, in the grant, the plan will be the design to work with a school counselor to train the staff, and then to help to design lessons on the development of those qualities of the perseverance and the self-efficacy. And then as students participate in the enrichment activities, it's a perfect opportunity to reinforce those qualities as they participate there. So we see this as kind of exciting, that we're going to have some real plans to not only provide some additional experiences, but also to be shaping some attitudes for our learners, ones that we know are very beneficial to future success. Details of the grant are provided in the memo included in your packet. We're finalizing the grant for submission, and it's due on the 28th. I don't anticipate any substantive changes, but if there are, we'll submit those to you. And under an action item, you're asked to consider the approval of the grant upon completion. That was a much longer report than I usually give for a 21st century. Any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you, appreciate you. Okay, next Tanya Wilkes, hi to you.
Good evening. Welcome.
Thank you.
First, I want to share with you our suspension reports. Each month, we give you a report of what's going on in the schools and suspensions. We had 1 elementary, a few at each of the middle schools, and then 1 for each high school, with Highland having a couple more for vandalism. Questions about suspensions? Thoughts? Okay, and then I also share with you any clinics, camps, or travel requests. We do have a couple of travel, I don't know, is it travel requests next? I don't know if I'm in order here. I think travel requests next.
Yeah.
First, and then we have a couple of Pocatello High School requests. Miss Mon has asked for the student government to go to Boise. Of course, according to guidelines from CDC, as long as we can go. And then our baseball coach had asked to go out of state, but he actually came back and said, never mind, I got back into the what's called Bucks Bags. It's a big baseball tournament in Boise. He was late to enter, but they let him go, so he's pretty happy about that. So took that one off. Okay, and you'll have action on that. Any questions? And then the last one is a couple camps from Highland High School. We have a baseball camp on March 5th by Mr. Christian Colonel, and then the wrestling club by Colby Cordley at Highland High School. Some of the things that we are just pretty consistent at trying to keep the costs. That's why we have the rate there down for athletes, and then making sure that proceeds go to both the athletes and the program in itself.
And chaperones.
And the chaperones on the travel, absolutely. That's what we want to make sure. Any questions?
And these are for kids too. Is this for kids to come?
Uh-huh.
Okay, that's what I thought.
And on the information they get, it actually tells me the age range and so forth. For instance, the baseball camp will be in season, so he won't put a camp on for his kiddos. He puts them on for younger.
I see. Okay.
Any questions? All right, that was easy. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Okay, the next on the topic agenda is business operations will be presented by Jonathan Balson.
Good evening, school board members. Thanks for your time this evening. The first on the agenda, we talk every month about the Idaho General Fund Revenue Report, and that's in your packet. The reason why we do this is at a very high level, you can think that, it is that education receives about half of the state's revenue. And so obviously we get our portion of that from our students' enrollment. So that's why we kind of keep an eye on these revenue numbers. And again, this year, the state legislature has a lot of money. Again, that first paragraph, again, that they're exceeding predictions 16.4%. Year to date is $2.6 billion. In that second column, I highlighted that, again, another source of revenue, that this is the largest month for corporate income tax revenue that the state has ever received in its history. And so, again, a lot of money available to that. And so consequently, in Governor Little, Superintendent Ibarra's individual budgets, again, education should get a large increase of that, which we're happy for. Again, by next board meeting, they should start to appropriate that money. So we should dial in. Mr. Smart and I, we kind of watch, and Superintendent Howell, again, we watch that really closely to kind of see, okay, how much extra money are we going to get in the way of salaries, operational dollars, and so forth. Also out there that we kind of watch a little bit, I just saw today that there's a bill for the largest tax cut in Idaho state history. And so we watch that carefully because, again, we get half of the taxes. And so if there's a tax cut, that means a little bit less, for us. But again, there's a lot of money this year. So that's probably appropriate, but we just kind of watch that closely. Again, there's a couple reports in there that you can read there. And again, just by way of information. Another information from our transportation department, the state sets aside 3 weeks out of the year for our bus drivers to count the students that they actually transport. And this, they call it rider count week, or these rider count is a component of the reimbursement that the state gives us for our transportation costs. And so we do that 3 times. The state actually takes the highest of those three times of the year. Obviously, they do it in fall, winter, and spring. And so when it says, okay, we're down from October, that probably makes sense because, middle of January, it was probably some cold days. And parents don't, put their kids out on the corner, possibly. Anyway, and so, but again, that doesn't hurt us because we can still use that high average. I will, by way of just information, again, our transportation department, I quickly calculated it, that we transport about 43% of our learners district-wide. And that's both for what we call safety stops and then regular stops. So, again, just by way of information. And lastly, for me, for some action item, and we talked previously about the Outdoor Athletic and Activities Committee. We talked about the SIP Committee. These are all coming from from these committees. It's in front of you in action to approve a vendor for our turf field and our video scoreboard at the Lookout Credit Union Field there at Pokie Stadium, and that is actually located over at our Hawthorne Middle School. As you know, Pocatello High is landlocked there. And so what we're asking for is to use some of these national vendors, which on occasion we do use these national vendors, but I will mention as we looked at all these vendors, our recommendation for the turf field, which is a turnkey operation from the dirt work to all the components that make up the field, make it safe for our athletes and our extracurricular, our band members, anything that goes on that field. We're recommending Hellas Construction. By way of just a little bit of a resume for them, they have done ISU. They do their ISU's turf. They've done Madison, which we went and actually saw. Obviously, we've seen ISU's, and they're actually also scheduled to do the Ravston Stadium up in Idaho Falls. And so they are out of Texas, so of course they're nationwide there. And then you see a dollar amount there. It's a large sum. We do want to remind you that we did receive a very generous donation from Lookout. Forgive me. I keep doing that. Yeah, did I do that before as well?
No, you're good.
Okay, I've previously done that. Yeah, sorry. Lookout Credit Union, forgive me for Lookout Credit Union and their generous donation of $1 million for some of these projects here in this field. And secondly, for the scoreboard, it'll be a very large video board, scoreboard, and Daktronics, and that's who we currently use in our gymnasiums and actually in our outdoor football scoreboards currently. And so that way we feel it's important because every scoreboard has their programming language and so their programming board, and so we felt it important for our scorekeepers, for our timekeepers to keep that consistent. And so again, we're using these national vendors, and these vendors, these contractors are part of that, in which we are a member of. And so it's our recommendation that we use this Hellas Construction for the turf field, and then Daktronics for the video scoreboard and soundboard. Any questions?
I just had a quick,
Sure, please.
so for instance, again, forgive me,
Please,
very new to this
please.
process. Do they use local workers for some of this stuff, or are they bringing people from Texas to do the work?
Okay, the answer is actually both. And so I will find out more specifically if you'd like
I
to
mean, at
know.
least on that, on the turf and the dirt work.
The dirt?
You see the typo in there.
Oh, okay, I thought, okay.
I just was curious if that's not something that can utilize
Sorry about that.
local.
So yes, obviously we try to use local work as much as we can. That being said, what we found even this last summer, and we're trying our best to get in on people's schedules coming up, is there's just a limited number of workers as well.
Right.
And so this is why over the next 2 to 3 months, you're going to be approving a lot of these bids, because we're trying to get early on these projects, early on these from everybody, from contractors to different vendors and so forth, because just lead times are so intense. So to answer your question, yes, there will be some, and we can find out exactly who they will use local for that.
Great, thank you.
That's a great question, and oftentimes they will use some subcontractors
Correct.
to do parts of electrical or landscaping, sprinkler, or the dirt work. I'm just teasing Mr. Ball.
Forgive me, there were a lot of people that reviewed this memo, I just have to say, but it is my name, my fault, I'm sorry.
No, yeah, so when there's an opportunity, I'm sure they would use local
Okay.
with the subs, but we may grant that to a contractor that's not necessarily tied to the local area.
Correct.
Yeah, now they have a lot of experience, Twin Falls, Boise.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, this is a huge,
Madison up in Rexburg.
yes, yep, we went
Yeah.
and saw
So
those.
they've vetted this company very much.
Absolutely.
All the way through. And the cushion padding, and just as a reminder, maybe for the board, that if you followed this, or maybe just kind of picking it up new through that, the committee, the activities committee, we set up that 5-year plan initially, and there were some other areas that we pulled back in, for example, the middle school tracks, which they're still available for running. We just kind of pared it down a little bit so that we could improve or enhance our high school fields to make them regulation size or make them more versatile in what we can do with them. And that went out through the committee, some other stakeholder groups. And so we were able to, again, pull back on some of those, like middle school tracks would have been upwards of $750,000, nearly $1 million for a couple, 2 or 3 of those really. And so that's where we've set aside money to do this. well, fortunately, we've been able to partner with great partners like Lookout Credit Union, with Idaho Central Credit Union, with Advantage and some Westmark. And we'll continue to, you know, take anyone who wants to come and put their name on something. We'd love to be part of that. And so when we look at, you know, a budget of 1.3, the district already had some money set aside for this project in addition to what's being granted to us by way of this sponsorship. And so we feel very comfortable recommending that. We know that supplies, the demand for labor is greater than ever. And so, you know, you can make a plan 2 or 3 years ago, and already we know that those inflationary costs have gone up probably upwards of 30%, which I think is probably right here in the ballpark of what we're asking. So appreciate the question, Ms. Clark, as all of you have asked great questions tonight, and we'll continue to.
Correct.
So does this,
I will, oh,
I was
sorry.
gonna say, this doesn't include the concession and the,
That's correct.
No.
Okay.
Correct. So there'll be some other outbuildings there, which you will come and approve. We're going out to bid hopefully next month for that. There'll be a concession stand and team locker room. Of course, some fencing to help protect this investment. What I was going to mention again, this is for Pocatello High School. The other 2 high schools are definitely coming in the next 2 years. And so this is just the first of year 3, and through the recommendation of the Outdoor Facility Committee, through the SIP Committee, to you, ultimately, you will help, you know, approve those. But this is our kind of our first year, our first phase of this, to kind of really increasing or updating and upgrading our outdoor activities committee. I mean, because again, this is football, soccer, lacrosse if we want, of course, band, anybody that could use these football fields or soccer fields.
maybe for their information that, you know, like for instance, Highland up there, the only thing they use Highland football field for is football, right? They don't practice on it. They don't use it for soccer. They don't use it for anything
Right.
else. Because,
And for example, the band, we always limit their activity there, or we have to ship them because they tend to use the middle of the field, which gets worn down very quickly. And so, you know, if you're practicing the middle of the field being the 30-yard line, it doesn't give you an accurate experience. And so it has been somewhat limited. The turf fields will allow us to play, you know, 8 months a year. And then as we progress through this 5-year plan, I was just talking to Ms. Wilkes about this again today. You know, if we look at bubbles or something, some kind of covering that we could use them 12 months a year, wouldn't that be incredible for our community?
Yeah.
So we are very excited about this, and we're happy to get this first phase.
Absolutely.
One other of our sponsorships that I failed to mention that I want to recognize too is Connections. And
Yes,
if I missed
absolutely.
anyone, Ms. Wilkes, please tell me.
No,
because we
thank
don't
you.
want to leave any of our. And Portland.
Portland.
Always a great one too. So I hope I didn't miss any others.
Again,
Well, I really want to emphasize this for the community as well. We cannot rent out our outdoor facilities because they are very fragile, if you will. And now with the turf fields, we will be able to allow outdoor, or our community to come in.
Cheaper upkeep too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
I
is.
think that's important.
okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
thank you, Jonathan. Next on the agenda is Employee Services, Carl Smart.
Okay, this isn't on the agenda, but Mr. Facer, I have your first item of business is a new chair, signature sheets for our check printing systems. So I will give this to Renee for you to sign,
Okay.
okay? So there are 3 copies here, so make sure you keep it in the box and all that stuff.
Okay. Keep me in line.
Okay, that's done, okay. My section of the agenda tonight, just a little update on, I know we're getting late, so we'll make this short. Infinite Campus IC Technology Department updates. Kevin told me tonight that the computers are starting to flow in again. As everybody knows, supply chains have been kind of slow getting things here. And so their Surface, I think it was the Surface Pros are come in again. So we were able to probably finish up that distribution of computers out into in our schools. We had an issue several months ago with some our wireless, and the solution that we had we finally said enough. We're going to go with a different solution. So they have been going through and updating access points for our wireless solutions. They got all the secondaries done except for the really, really high spots in the gyms. And they've been going through and doing the elementaries. And Kevin said they're down to just a few elementary schools before they can have that transitioned over. And over the winter break, just to let you know, we transitioned to Gmail as a email provider away from the Microsoft Outlook thing. And that's actually saves us money. We don't have to pay for the firewall that we have to use for the email, and that's all done by Gmail, so, or Google. So that transitioned, there's still one or two bumps in the road we have to figure out, but overall it's been very good. IC, for you new board members, IC really is a 4-letter word in our view. ISEE, it's the state reporting system. Now, Courtney mentioned earlier tonight about the State Board of Education transitioning this year to an average daily membership versus average daily attendance. I took the liberty of, after I heard her mention that tonight, I took the liberty of running the reports again for the mid-year reporting period, and they still have not made that change. And the reason that is important, just to let you know, is ADA is going to be lower in the way of the number of units they fund versus average daily membership. And if they were to continue using average daily attendance, we have to fund our own protection. So you drop a 1% is what they'll fund you. They'll fund you 99%. Is it 99% or 97%? All of a sudden I thought that's not the right number. So 97%, you lose 3%. And the report shows here that was an additional 2.5% hit to all the districts around the state. That's a significant amount of money. So the fact that they're going to average daily membership will help us. And we have in our budget prepared for that 3% reduction. Hopefully with average daily membership, we will not have to deal with the whole 3%. So that's the good news. So part of IC, there's still our February funding window doesn't open until the middle of February 10th, 15th, somewhere in that range. So hopefully these reports will be updated by then. In your packet is several sheets that have graphs and data on our student enrollment. We won't go into that in a lot of detail. Just note that we are up over what we were a year ago, about 100 students generally. And last year when we did average daily membership, this is tying back to IC again, average daily membership, our number of units were pretty much right on the money where we thought they were going to be, as if they had not had the COVID issues. So with 100 kids additional, we probably will see probably a few more units than we saw a year ago, which is, again, good news. But again, we won't know that information for about a month.
Will you just define unit a little bit, Carl?
A unit is a way that the state funds the districts. So a unit, you can liken it to a classroom. And for each group of students, K through, or kindergarten's 1 through 3 is another group, 4 through 6 is another group, and secondary. They have different divisors. And they pull out special ed, they pull out alternate schools, and each one of them has a different divisor, and they multiply or divide by the divisor, come up with a number of units, and they total them all up. But you can really equate it to a classroom when it really comes down to it. And typically, we've been right around 600 units or 600 classrooms. And so that's kind of where we've been budgeting over the last 2 or 3 years. The last couple of years have been hard to budget for, but that's where we've been. Enough said?
Got it.
Okay. Also, every month we share with you a wellness dashboard, and it's basically a snapshot of where we are with our insurance policies, our medical, dental, vision, that sort of thing. Of course, the big one in this whole mix is the medical insurance. And so that takes up the bulk of these documents that you see every month. So it breaks down where we are spending our funds in the way this insurance funds. It goes to these folks through our premiums, of course, and the number of drugs, the high drugs, the number of drugs, who the providers are, the diseases that were chronic out there, the most seen. What it really comes down to, when you on the second page of each of these two reports, is a notation that says loss experience. And so on November's, we had a very good loss experience. We only spent 66% of our premium to go towards medical costs. However, you look at the next month, it's 106%. And so over the course of the year, we look at these loss experiences and look at trend for medical costs, and we work with our insurance consultant to kind of determine where it looks like our insurance premium might go the following year. And in fact, we are meeting next week with Lockton and Pacific Source, the powwow we have every year, our meeting. And we, I think it's next Tuesday we're meeting, and so we will have a better idea after next week's meeting on where Pacific Source has an idea where things are going. And we have Lockton to back up that data as well. So we make sure we know where we're going.
Carl, is that December? Are the December numbers typically higher because people are trying to meet a deductible?
You know what? I couldn't tell you that right off the top of my head. It has been, as Mr. Facer and Mr. Vitale know, it's been all over the board this last several months. And some months it's really scary, and some months, like this November one, 66%. You know, if we could do that every month, that would be great. So, as Dr. Howe mentioned, some months we know we're going to have a little bit more, especially in the months of June and July, because that's when teachers are out and are able to get some maybe things done. Same thing with December. They have a couple of weeks.
Are based on how much it's used. Is that right? The premiums for next year
Yes,
are based on how?
it's on our experience. And we have to realize, too, that some of this data is delayed maybe 30 days, 45 days because of how things flow through the insurance systems. And so we shall see. But we know we do have some high claims based upon COVID. And so those are reflective in some of these reports as well. Health fair, for those of you who've been around a while, you know we have a health fair every winter, spring, spring. So it's January, February. And over the last several years, we typically have this health fair, bring vendors in, our insurance companies, and they can sit and talk. Because of COVID this last year, we made it a drastic change and just had blood draws and BMI data. So blood pressure, weight, height. We are going to do that same thing this year. We're going to cut it back, no vendors, and we're going to do blood pressure, height, weight, this was the BMI, and blood draws. And so over the 2 weeks, we have an opportunity for about 400 employees for each week, or to bring their family or spouse or dependents to participate in this health fair and get their blood drawn. We get a great rate on the service from Portneuf Medical Center. It's $43 for a comprehensive panel, metabolic panel. So it's a great rate, but we are emphasizing wellness, and so this gives our employees an opportunity to have something in their hand that they can then go to their physician and talk to them about what their needs might be. So we invite you to attend with us. If you want to come and get a blood draw, we'll even invite you to do that. And, yeah,
Sign me.
we don't get a lot of takers, let me tell you. But we'll certainly invite you up and participate with us. Like I said, we have 400 each day for this coming Saturday, which is the first one. We have 396 already signed up. And then for the week of the February 5th, we have 284, and it'll fill up a little bit more as we get closer to the 5th. And of course, at the same time, we offer the ever popular mammogram, and we have close to 200 spots that the hospital assigns us. And in fact, the mammogram coach was parked out here in the parking lot today, and it was full. On Saturday, we have 15 spots to coincide with the health fair. It's full. The 5th is full. So our employees are utilizing that service. And the hospital, they do it with us because they know that they're going to get a full agenda, if you want to call it that, a schedule. So they work with us, and it's been very nice. And so over the next 2 or 3 weeks, we will have mammograms to different parts of the community. Some are here, some up to Idaho Medical Imaging, and even some up to the hospital. So anyway, we work with them and make that happen. But anyway, long story short, if you want to participate with us, 7 o'clock in the morning to noon on each of those Saturdays, the 5th or the 22nd.
It is a really great thing.
It is. And our employees are great to participate with us.
Yeah.
And Carl, we just very briefly talk about how that impacts, as Mrs. Judy asked about renewal rate on insurance.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Good point. We, several years ago, we approached our insurance carrier, medical insurance carrier, and say, will you be partners in wellness with us? Now, I don't know how many of you might be associated with any sort of medical programs, that sort of thing. Wellness is one of those nebulous things. Can you get a real definitive return on investment on that wellness program? And most places will say it's very hard to quantify. But if you get your employees involved in their health, we know you're going to get results and who they see and what they see. So we asked our insurance carrier to see if they would partner with us. And we were with Regents Blue Shield back then, and they bought in with us. And by virtue of our employees participating in certain wellness activities, biometric screening, which we do up here, go get an annual health exam. Right now we have a flu shot, take a general health assessment, and get one dental cleaning. If the employees participate in that, we will pay 100% of their premium the next year. Okay?
Wow.
If they don't, they pay $65. But here's the kicker. If we participate and get a certain level of participation with those programs, plus the district has some other things that we can also opt in to do, the insurance carrier will give us up to 4% off of our renewal. And so that's hundreds of thousands of dollars over time. So it's important for us, for our employees to participate in wellness for their health, but it also it impacts our bottom line as well. And when it impacts our bottom line, it impacts the employees' bottom line when they have to pay the premium for their own families. So it's a win-win for everybody if they participate. Enough said, Mr. Howell. Okay. The last item on my section of the agenda is emergency school closure. We had a snow day on the 4th of January. The state requires us to report that to them, and there's a resolution in your packet tonight that needs to be approved, and we will send this to Boise. And it tells them that we did take a day off, and the second sheet shows how many hours that each one of our sections, we talk about grades 1 through 3, 4 through 6 is secondary, how many minutes are impacted in that day. And even though we do not turn any attendance in for that day through IC, that 4-letter word again, that will not impact us because this emergency closure resolution will take care of that. And so we will ask you tonight to approve that resolution so we can send it to Boise. And once it gets there, they do their magic. And it all comes out in the wash when it comes to our financing and the fund for units. So unless you have questions or comments, that concludes my section of the agenda tonight.
Thank you. Okay, we do not have any human resource report today. So next on the agenda is the superintendent's report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple items for me, and just backing up one step here to Carl's emergency closure. Through our contact list and your cell phones that we've checked out to you, I think Mrs. Fisher will be notifying you of emergency closure days. And I work very closely with our transportation department, with the cities and the counties to determine, it's an 11-mile stretch really for our district. And what happens in the south may not, as you are well aware, may not necessarily be the case in the north and vice versa. So we take all that into consideration, as well as the bench areas that we have in kind of the mountainous region as well. And so a lot of factors come into play with that. And so we do our best to, to hold school, but on those days when we know that we have young drivers out on the road, when we have little ones walking to a bus stop, and just what we can provide as far as transportation to safely get our learners in place. So, probably 4 years ago, 5, I don't remember, it was probably my second or third year as superintendent, and I called 4 days of school closure inside of about a week and a half, and I don't think we'd had 4 days in the 5 or 6 years previous to that. So it's just the nature of where we live, I guess. But anyway, you'll be contacted just through probably a text message to let you know. And then she, of course, Mrs. Fisher, gets all that out to the media, and we post it on Facebook. In fact, we ask our principals if they can safely get to their buildings, that they be there for about an hour to an hour and a half, just in case. In fact, I know when I was at Jefferson, we had some learners that just didn't get the message from whatever sources we provided at the time. And so we were able to make sure that they got them safely. We do the same thing in this building. We come in for anywhere from a couple hours. We make sure that we cover through middle school, what would be the start of middle school, to answer phones. I bet we had less than 10 calls. So our message opportunities and capabilities are being very widespread and utilized. And so that's really curtailed over the duration that I've been here in this office.
We know if it's gonna be a payroll prep day, it's gonna be a,
I've called those a few times on Carl's payroll days, so his folks come in so that everyone can get paid. So we're fortunate that they will do that. Again, if it's safe to travel, at least for that small group of people. So first up, you have board calendar. Of course, our meeting tonight, and then getting into next week on the 26th. We'll have key communicators. We did not talk about that as a committee, but typically, if a couple of you would like to come, we would love to have you. It's kind of a little bit of a meet and greet for some of the folks in our community that Mrs. Fisher has identified that have self-appointed. They've asked, can I join? Some, we've gone out and asked them to be part of that. But anything that we do legislatively, anything that we do locally, in regard to levies and big building projects and that sort of thing, these are the folks that, are kind of our cheerleaders that get out there and share the message. And so we meet the fourth Wednesday of every month, and so that's coming up next week. Do you usually send the invite and then just pick up a couple of board members? Is that how we've done it in the past? Okay. Next Thursday, curriculum. I think that's Mrs. Judy and Paul. Yeah. And so you'll have a meeting next week on the 27th with Mr. Orr. The time there is always scheduled. It may be a little less, a little more. he'll have an agenda for you, and you'll know beforehand. Occasionally, if there's just a couple of agenda items that he can push back, he may not hold the meeting, but you'll be notified through your board calendar.
So that's 8, I see.
Okay, and then we also have student discipline hearings next Wednesday, 3:30, and I think we have 3 thus far. Okay, and so that would likely take us out to about 5:30, I'm guessing, 5:15 to 5:30, probably somewhere in that neighborhood.
Depending.
Our first board training coming up on Wednesday, the 2nd of February. And then we have some other things coming up. Tuesday, the 8th, will be our work session at 3:30. And then Wednesday, the 9th, student discipline hearings again scheduled. We'll see how that goes. You only have one DDRC this week. And so discipline in a better place. And maybe we won't have meetings, meeting that night, or just limited, okay? And then Ed Foundation meeting, we don't have representatives from the board on that foundation anymore. And so there was some guidance from legal counsel that there is a separation between the Education Foundation and the Board of Trustees. So that's kind of the direction that we've gone. And then district curriculum, again, out to the 18th on Friday, as well as a board meeting on, month out would be the 15th. And then I think we have ISBA Day on the Hill, the 21st and 22nd, if you can confirm your availability with Ms. Johnson so she can get rooms booked. Tentatively, what I saw this morning, it's still a go in person. We'll monitor that over the next week or two and see if that changes. And then Tuesday, instructional technology, although we'll just be returning from Boise. Wednesday, the 23rd, key communicators again, student discipline, so that takes us out more than a month. Next up for you is legislative update. Mrs. Fisher touched on a couple of these. I believe Mr. Balls did as well. We don't have much to get us started. We do know that the governor's budget and Superintendent Ibarra's budgets came out. The governor's budget actually a little higher this year. Some of the things that he is proposing for our legislature to consider would be accelerate the implementation of the career ladder, picking up 2 years at a total of $104 million. Recommends $1,000 bonus for all teachers for increased workload. 5% increase for classified staff. I believe that was administrative as well. Increase the state contribution for school staff health insurance. And so this is one that we'll watch closely as Mr. Smart presented tonight. You know, our increases with health insurance have just continued to rise as they have nationally. By getting into a greater pool, that may distribute some of those costs across a greater number of people. And so we'll take a look at that, and we'll come to the board as we understand more as this develops and share with you what our recommendation would be. But there's a big chunk that's being added or proposed by the governor to allow districts to get into that state of Idaho plan. And so, again, I'm sure there'll be some great things with that, and maybe some. One that we were watching previous to this was retirees, but because we do include them on our plan, and the state said that they have something in the works to make sure that our retirees are covered as well. So we'll let you know more as we learn more. Literacy intervention, $47 million. $50 million for empowering parent grants, which builds on the Strong Families, Strong Students Grant Program from this past year. Also of note are there's a House Bill 438, which talks about filling vacant positions after a trustee recall election. And the ISBA is neutral on this. And we include the capital notes for you. Oftentimes we receive them Monday or Tuesday after you have received the board agenda on Friday. So this will oftentimes, again, be an addendum item. And so we'll just include it and then I'll report on it. but essentially they're neutral. And if one trustee is recalled, then that would be an appointment by the local county commissioners. And if it's more than 100 days, then the board can appoint, but at the next election, then the people would have a say, rather than that appointment just stand for the balance of that, the time that that trustee would have served if they had stayed. So the newly appointed could possibly run, or, yeah, so we'll just see, we'll kind of watch that
Oh,
one.
so the first available election.
Yeah, yep, House Bill 437, ISBA is taking a stand to oppose this. This is on the language arts, literacy, math, and science standards. And they are essentially just saying that it could wreak havoc on their education ability. I've asked Mr. Orr to watch this one closely, because if there's not anything in place, the state board is actually the ones that determine what the standards are. So it's unusual that the legislature is trying to tell the state board what to do in this legislation, and that's kind of what's happening. So, I don't know what's going to happen with that one, but again, we'll keep a careful eye on it. And was there one more in this batch? Corporate income tax rate, and you just heard from Mr. Balls tonight, and what that's looking like, that it's already up at record levels, but it would be to lower tax rates, and for taxpayers as well as the corporate. So, I know that that's a big priority for this legislative group, as well as all-day kindergarten and insurance. Those are the top three that I've heard of that our legislature will be taking on. We've also heard that it will be hopefully a shorter session, because a lot of folks will be out on the circuit for reelection. And so if they stay in town, the less time they're there is probably more beneficial. When they have a lot of time, and they think of things that sometimes aren't quite as good for us. So, yeah, I don't know how to say that. Maybe I shouldn't have said anything. But, anyway, so that's my report for tonight, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dr. Howe. Appreciate that. Next on the agenda is public written comment pertinent to agenda action items, and we have no comments. So we'll move on to action items. We'll now, first on the item is to adopt the Head Start compliance resolution. Is there a motion?
I hereby move that board adopt the Head Start program compliance resolution as presented.
Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I didn't ask for, oh well. Next on the agenda is to approve the 21st Century After School Program grant application pending completion. Is there a motion?
Your turn.
I move that we approve the 21st Century After School Program grant application pending completion.
I'll second it.
Okay, is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next on the business is to approve the out-of-state overnight travel request. Is there a motion?
I hereby move that the board approve the out-of-state overnight travel request as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And next is on the business to approve camp request. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the camp requests.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion passed. Next on the, is to authorize the use of national vendors and enter into a necessary agreement. Is there a motion?
I move that we authorize the use of the national vendors.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That is passed. The final item on business is to adopt the emergency school closure resolution. Is there a motion?
hereby move that the board adopt the emergency school closure resolution.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That concludes this meeting, and I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. This meeting is adjourned.